All right. Hey, Tannah, how's it going?
Hey, better now that both of you are here.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. I'm feeling great. This was like a very pleasant surprise to think about in the last, just 24 hours. So I'm pumped. How are you guys?
Good. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach. I've worked extensively with both Holly and Tannah, and we just kind of dig into all the good stuff and try and make them better, right? It's a, find some peace, work on relationships, figure out what's holding them back, and, just create deeper levels of understanding so that they can understand themselves better and show up in the world more powerfully. I'd say in a nutshell, that's what I do. And we work through stressful situations to go deeper and understand childhood and how that affects us in the present day and try to heal some of those wounds. So I just took my Enneagram test today. I found out I'm a 7. So that's the vision,
Enthusiastic visionary.
enthusiastic visionary, which I think suits me well. I wasn't super surprised, I guess. I'm still trying to learn about all these things. I guess I'll let Holly or Tannah shine some light on it and we'll just get a conversation going here.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we jump into everything about today's episode, which is really about Brandon being here as our first guest, you're our first guest on this podcast.
That's awesome.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
there should be no one else as the guy that
True.
we
There
talk
should
about
be no
on
one else
every
besides
episode.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody who's a regular listener to the podcast has heard about Brandon multiple times. So anyway, before we jump into that, just a reminder, this is Tannah and I's podcast called the Enneagram and Adventure, where we talk about everything living life through the lens of the Enneagram. Anything you want to add, Tannah?
Just my regular reminder that the Enneagram is about your core motivation rather than the behaviors that you exhibit. So that's what makes you different than other personality assessments, like Myers-Briggs or things like that. And I am literally so pumped that Brandon is here. I'm so pumped. First, I missed him because I haven't been working with him in just a little bit, and I'm like, I need it. I'm like, I'm in a drought. So I'm super pumped to hear a little bit more about your reaction to your assessment, Brandon. But one thing I do want to call out before we get started is the work with Brandon. For any of you who are interested in this self-development work is groundbreaking. That's to put it lightly for me. He helped me break through some things that I didn't even know that I had to break through in order to show up differently. And I'll say it anytime anybody asks, it was the most valuable time spent every week, something that I looked forward to, something that made me lighter every single time. I think after every call, I told Brandon, like, my shoulders are lower. And that's like my gauge for like, I had a call with Brandon this week. I didn't have a call, Brandon this week. So for those of you watching, you saw my shoulders go up to my ears, but I'm very stressed, but
Tannah's
super, super.
stressed. She wears her shoulders like earrings.
Well, thank you.
And they're not cute.
And words, Tannah. Yeah, I mean, well, the goal is to really get you to handle the stresses better so you don't get to that point on a regular basis. That is just like understanding the work situations in a way that is more clean energetically and emotionally. And so that does take taking a look at our past and seeing where we've attached meaning and, negative judgments to situations, because when that stress response gets activated, these are like, they're programs, they're patterns. So when I experience something one way repeatedly, I expect that. And if it doesn't give me the results I want, that's always going to feel bad. And so we're always just trying to rework these equations to be more neutral. And so when we're neutral emotionally, we can be present. And really that's the goal, is to get to a place of acceptance with your reality and your situation so that you can put your best foot forward. That is continuously working through the stress response to basically shave layers off of it, because a lot of these patterns are very old and they're very practiced, and it takes a bit to unwind them. But that's generally the results you're going to experience, is, feeling more calm and centered and relaxed, and a lot more peace of mind, a lot more confidence in putting yourself out there, taking risks, taking new steps that maybe you wouldn't have before. And fortunately for you, I mean, that added up to promotion and all sorts of things, right?
100%.
Yeah. So I think,
Um,
Brandon, the work with the Enneagram ties pretty closely into like the work that we've done. Some of the self-awareness I had from the Enneagram coming into the work with you, I think was super helpful, but also in just what you just shared, right? About these practice patterns. One of the things that Enneagram helps identify are people's practiced patterns and the things that they've been doing to like survive since they were little kids.
And, I guess I've never been a fan of assessments for that reason. I don't like to be put in a box and like labeled. So that's another issue, but it's just kind of more of, I view everybody as in constant evolution. And, I view assessments as kind of this like starting place of, okay, this is where I'm currently at. And I don't think it should ever be a fixed thing, because I view everything as we can improve anything you want. And so you can grow in new ways that I don't know if it would change your number over time or what, but I view like, yeah, the awareness gets created, and then through development, I think you can really blossom into this completely different person. I think that's what's cool. Is my understanding is Enneagram kind of factors in a lot of these things that I'm talking about. So I guess I'm more curious about it because of that.
Yeah, it is different assessment from that standpoint. But Tannah, is there anything you would add along those lines in terms of how the Enneagram set you up for being able to do the deeper work?
I would say that if I retook my assessment today, Holly, after having with Brandon, I would probably be higher in some numbers than I was when I originally took the assessment 2 years ago. I see it as more of like a way to balance out, where instead of like that super high 2 energy, like maybe there's more room for me to be in 4 energy, or more room for me to be in 9 energy. So I would say that it gave me really good perspective of my blind spots, because times when people get the results feel a little triggered, like, or they get a little bit of the ick. And I would say that, and Brandon knows this, I've said this before in conversations with you, where so cringy to like say those things out loud, but having this space with Brandon to be able to address it in a really safe, comfortable, like one-on-one setting felt way less intimidating and way less like scary, for lack of a better word. So I would say it set me up for success in a way of like, okay, these are the things that I'm noticing and I think come from somewhere, but I don't know where. And Brandon helped me see where some of those things came from, where I may have never considered that, and kind of move through to be able to show up differently is how it helped me. But Holly, would you say the same?
Yeah, I think, working, like understanding my Enneagram before working with Brandon, I think just helped me be able to go a lot deeper on things. I was aware of some of the things I was doing. I just didn't know how to break the pattern by myself. So then working through that stuff with Brandon has helped those patterns maybe not completely break, but a lot of them like soften or become more manageable. Maybe some of them have broken all the way. I don't know. We are on this podcast right now.
Yeah.
I will say, Brandon, Holly, and I have hypothesized about this moment of you taking your assessment. I'm like, what do you think? I don't know. And it's like, I could see a 7. I could see a 4. I was not surprised by your 7, just like the fearless, like visionary, creative kind of vibe from you. I was surprised a little bit by your tri-type. What was your initial reaction to all the information?
So I only took the assessment like an hour ago, and I just kind of like skimmed it. So I
Yeah.
don't have a lot to like dig into there. Holly was able to kind of thumb through,
His coaching
the
companion.
coaching piece. So yeah, maybe she can open some of that stuff up. I won't get to actually sit with it until tonight, so we're a little premature right now.
After this podcast, Brandon and I are going to go have some summer water, and then maybe something else will come up.
I love that.
But I guess I've kind of always been a big idea, big visionary type person. I've never wanted to live a small life, maybe a little bit too idealistic at times. And that's gotten me into trouble, where maybe I get ahead of myself and get a little bit buried. But so, yeah, I would say over the last 10 years, I've really been conscious of not throwing in myself into situations too early where I know I'm going to get destroyed. I've slowed down the process a bit to really develop these skill sets at a deep level so that, it's kind of growing into the big vision, which, when you get these visions, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to act on this right away. And, the vision it's a long-term thing. It's a 10, 20-year plan. But early on, I was like, oh, I'll just go do all this stuff. And I had no idea what I was doing and I would just get buried. Right. So, I've kind of gained the street smarts now at this point of, hey, these things actually take time and there's a process and like all that stuff. So I feel like I'm balancing out my skill sets at this point. And I think that's kind of what it showed, right? I had a decent balance between the numbers.
Yeah. It surprised me. Integrated.
Well,
Of
'cause
course he integrated.
it's just been this big journey of, integration and just really like healing the past to be more present. I always kind of joke with Holly about this, where it's just like, there's not much going on in my mind most of the time. I'm just like here. Right. And so people have to like prompt me with things and then I can just like rattle it off. But there's really not much going on just because like I'm here now, because all the past stuff I've like dug into it, gone the depths, and there's just not much there anymore that I even care about. It's been cool to kind of see like, the young ambitious me versus the me coming into my own now type of situation. And yeah, I guess I've always had that dreamer mindset, and I just feel like I'm hitting to the point where my dreams are like possible now, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. That's
Kind
very
of cool. That's amazing.
Well, it's just been such a long road that I don't know. Yeah, it does just all these things start to be matter of fact, I guess, because it's like, well, I've done the work. I know I've done the work. I've done the work at super deep levels. There's not much I won't look at this point. And so it just kind of feels like things are just kind of a matter of time at this point, which is, it's exciting, but I'm emotionally balanced. So I don't allow myself to get super excited about anything. So it's like,
Okay, so more visionary than enthusiastic from an outward perspective. Got it.
I guess early on, I would say more enthusiastic, but I guess I've been much more grounded in reality now. Oh yeah, it does take a lot of like really grounded hard work to build a vision, and
Right.
and that's not super exciting, but it's necessary, right? So
Yeah, I can just touch on really quick his ability to just riff on something. So for anybody who's not familiar, one, you need to go follow Brandon on all his socials. He's got a YouTube, an Instagram, a TikTok, a Threads, all the things. He's everywhere. You should go follow him. I help him create the content there. And so, yes, he absolutely can like riff off on anything. So he'll be like, let's going to talk about this. You're going to walk and you're going to talk to me about something. And he just will. Just whatever it is. He just takes like a one-line prompt and like, yeah. Yep.
No big deal.
well, in our podcast, yeah, I mean, it's basically an hour.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I love that.
So,
I love
listen
that.
to that. It's all made up on the spot.
Yeah.
So just little prompts here and there, and that's about it.
Right. Which does read pretty 7, right?
That
Like
reads very, very seven.
spontaneous. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that's very intentional though. So I've trained myself to be in the moment, and with integration, these things like they just become a part of you at a deep level where you don't even have to think about it. It just kind of pours out of you. And so that's what's like really cool when you do the deeper work is you're able to kind of jump off the cliff and you're not really worried because you like trust that you'll figure it out on your way down. And, that's one of the gifts of really coming to peace with your past and understanding that your childhood shaped you in certain ways, but it also brought you a lot of gifts. And if you want to unlock those, that's about removing the shame and the pain behind them and integrating them back into yourself rather than functioning from the womb.
It feels so Enneagram pride for me from just an awareness perspective. So I'm curious for a lot of the topics that Holly and I talk about, awareness is usually, if it's not at the forefront, it's like somewhere in the cold. We sometimes tie it with ego and sometimes tie it with a few different things. So, I mean, what are your thoughts or what tips, I guess, would you have for people who are listening with intention of trying to find some awareness? What does that deeper work do for that for that, trying to get a little bit deeper, a little bit more aware.
So everything I do is feeling based. So I view your feelings as your compass, and you should listen to them. And they're like insights into what's going on with you at a deeper level. So our unconscious and subconscious mind, which is our past, that's how it communicates with us, is how we feel. And through your triggers and the things that bother you or the continuous stresses in your life, and that could even be like, oh, in relationship, keep attracting this type of person and I don't know why, right?
Mhm.
Well, there's feelings wrapped up in all that stuff where basically something gets activated within you, and then you have a strategy or a coping mechanism attached to avoiding that feeling. So I'm going to have to go outside myself to try and figure out something to soothe me from that feeling. That's why we repeat patterns over and over again, is because we have reactions attached to every negative feeling we have. And so I like to create the space to sit with those feelings, feel them and experience them and understand what their message actually is. Okay. And a lot of times that message is just a younger version of ourselves where something stressful happened that we didn't have the skills for to manage, or we didn't have the support or the nurturing from our parents. And so these things got left in an unresolved place. And if it's unresolved, that means I just formed a blanket idea about that situation that's very shallow and in my thought process. It's just very reactionary. When I see this, I get anxiety and then I do something to move away from it. When we're talking about breaking patterns, it's about when I go to do this, I feel the anxiety, but then I go into the anxiety and I explore it with curiosity. That's how we start to understand ourselves at a deeper level, is we actually have to give ourselves permission to feel, and instead of pushing these things away or avoiding them, because it's the access point to your growth, because if you allow yourself to open it up, now you can take a look at your mindset at that stage. So let's say it's like a 6-year-old version of you that's wounded that you're acting from. So your whole thought process is that of a 6-year-old. And so that's where we can act childish in certain situations, throw tantrums, whatever it is, right? and and so it's knowing that we're developing emotional maturity. And so that means I'm taking that 6-year-old version of me and I'm taking a look at that situation from an adult perspective, that, hey, like I actually understand these dynamics better now that I've lived some life. And that in itself, that witnessing is like, that's very healing in itself, where we can start to unwind and soften these patterns because I'm starting to understand why that hurt me so much and actually what I can do about it now as a adult with agency, right? It's these patterns that we run from, that it's like we usually conquered them a long time ago, but we haven't updated our mindset about it. We still think they're in play, and we still have these reactions attached to them where we're running from things that aren't even a big deal anymore. If we just turn around and face it, a lot of times these things dissolve pretty rapidly. And you've probably experienced that, right, Tannah?
Many
We just
times.
think, oh yeah, that's like me in high school, and oh, that's kind of silly. I don't think that way anymore. It just comes this kind of, oh, I don't need to hold on to that anymore. And when we give ourselves that permission to unlock it and let it go and see it kind of with these new eyes, basically that immature version of us, we're unraveling those emotions, which the emotions are what create the reaction. So when we're neutralizing emotion, we gain wisdom of how to handle those situations better. And that's what creates peace for us. And that's also what brings us to the present moment. So when I'm able to let go of the past, that's going to be indicated by, I just feel like kind of peace in my heart. Like I can relax about these situations that used to really stress me out because I learned about them and I understand them now. So I don't need to fear them anymore. So when we don't understand something, we fear it. And so that's where we have the anxieties and the worries and the doubts and the I'm not good enough, and all those things stem from that. And so if we just turn around and rework it, a lot of times these things just melt away, and then we're just like, oh, okay, I don't really struggle with that anymore.
So manifestation in that sense, not real. Like we need to look at the patterns. We need to figure out why we're attracting or copy pasting the things that we're copy pasting. I love that. I liken it a little bit to, Brandon, there are many a high school or younger age me dust bunny that you have helped clear for me out of my head. But I've told this story, I think, on here before, where this reads a little like Enneagram 2, which is what I am. I'm a social 2. My second highest number is 3. But in high school, the varsity soccer coach told me that I could suit up for a varsity game if I scored 3 goals in my last 2 games, and I scored 5, like just to prove a point. That unhealthy behavior still happens sometimes with authority for me. It's this like very twisted relationship with authority, and you've helped me gain so much visibility as to why that is and where that comes from, because it wasn't just that experience as the example. It was coming from something much different that we've talked about in relation to, my authority at a really young age and how my relationship was there. But it just ties the work in the Enneagram so well, is why I bring it up, is just like that awareness piece, the examples that come up, being able to recognize those examples, to your point, like you're witnessing it and then doing something different the next time. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's creating space and slowing down the reaction is really how we create awareness. We start to, and it's when we take a step back, it's just the simple prompt of, why do I do this? Why do I keep attracting this person? Why do I allow this person to treat me this way? If you start to ask that question, why, and then also kind of settle into the idea of, I don't know, you're creating that curiosity of like, oh, I'd like to find out though, right? It's this whole chain of, I need to be able to soften the energy and the judgment around my perceived flaws or the things I'm struggling with. I just need to approach it with this kind of idea that, like, I'm human. I struggle with things just like everybody else. And I would prefer a different experience than this same one over and over again. And so that's just going to take a different level of thinking. It's going to take me embodying things differently. I can't be in the reactionary place of emotion or not feeling good enough. And like I always say, it's like, teenage years, 20s, I think everybody probably should have a chip on their shoulder. They probably should feel like they need to prove themselves, because that's a powerful driver. Is, we've all had somebody that made us feel not good enough. That's kind of standard. It's really a healthy motivation for a while, because if we can channel that into some sort of focus, like, you can get really good at stuff. Like, you can really develop a skill set, but we just don't want to stay there forever. We want to eventually be like, well, yeah, I don't really need to prove anything anymore. I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor because I've worked really hard. It's also like, thank you for making me feel not good enough, because that's what made me dig in and really work at this, right? Because if I didn't feel that way, I probably wouldn't have done those things. And so that's the gift in all of it.
That's a really great reminder. And Holly, I have a quick question for you in a second after I make this comment. But like, you are so good in that deep work of, like, through the trial and tribulation of what got you there, you always call out the gift in the conversation. And I think it's worth mentioning, like, numbers 1 through 9, whatever you are, how much of whatever number you are, there's a gift in all of it. Holly and I talk a lot about the awareness piece, or what it looks like in stress, or what you could work on. And it's worth noting that there's a gift in all of that. So while it might sound hard or negative, it's meant to be positive from the standpoint of, there's a gift in some of that. Holly, we've talked a little bit about this, like what it looks like when you show up like strong in that 8 energy. How much of your work with Brandon would you say has an impact on that, when you are able to show up confident and like say the thing and just speak your mind?
I think it's made the 8 energy come out in more places, rather than only in places where I'm super confident in the knowledge of something. It's also now showing up where I no longer panic prep for a meeting. I feel more confident just going in and having to speak to whatever the thing is I have to speak to. So I think it's made some of the 8 energy more readily available. Yeah.
Fair.
Well, so it's accessing your gifts, right?
Right.
So we have to unlock.
Yeah.
You basically, when you remove the shame of like, I'm not supposed to be this way, Now you free up that energy to be able to use it. And so that's really the goal, is to kind of take the shame out of things, or, feel guilty for, oh, maybe I'm stepping on people's toes and this and that. But it's like when we come from a healed place, we do have like a much more balanced perspective, where we have the emotional intelligence to take into account the people around us, and how I'm showing up and how it might affect others. So I'm more likely to act from a way that like benefits more people once I do the deeper work, because I'm not acting out of self-preservation. Because the self-preservation, like everything, just becomes about me, right? And so as we start to heal those wounds, I start to surrender that a little bit. And so, yeah, we get more access to the gifts and more situations, because you have something to contribute that could be helpful to other people.
Speaking to my two heart, helpful to other people through all of this work. Yes, that's what we're doing. No, we're serving ourselves. I'm serving myself. That's the word. Serving myself, Holly.
We're just trying to get your
Um,
4 to come up.
It's working. I don't know, Brandon. I don't know if you saw the video on our stories on our Instagram, if you follow on Instagram, but Holly tried to kill me on a 3-mile run. I told our listeners that if I am not on the next podcast, you know what happened to me. But I did not die.
She did not die, folks. She is present at the moment.
Well, she's been trying to kill me on these hikes. Like, I had this flight to Boulder, right, or to
To
Denver,
Denver.
that took 24 hours. I had to sleep in the airport, from Nashville. So it should be 3 hours. Got stuck in Atlanta, had to sleep on a bench. It took me 24 hours to get here. And then her and Aaron are like, yeah, we're going for this hike. And, it's like the altitude and all these things I'm not used to. I'm like dying up there. They're like way ahead of me. And I'm like, yeah, like, can you guys chill out for a little bit? I'm sleep deprived.
We made it. We can do hard things. He's not dead. You're not dead. You're both here. You can love me for it
I'm
later.
reluctantly here.
Begrudgingly here.
Begrudgingly.
And no, it's channeling that 4 energy for me, Brandon, where I'm like, Ira feels like a 4. So she told me directly in the story, she's like, you're being very dramatic today. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. How 4 of me. She's compliment.
Anyway.
Oh my God. So anyway, Holly's the best. We love her so much.
She's so productive that she's making me more productive, right? Because I'm like, oh, like Holly does all this stuff. I'm like, I have to do more. I have to do more.
I feel
No,
that. I
it's
feel
not a
that.
comparison game. No.
I
There's
feel
some
that.
other something.
I'm just riding her coattails on this journey of like, when do you want to record? I'll edit, post, do everything. Like, I'm the worst. I am the actual worst. But I do have one question to Brandon before I forget. Along all of the things going on, we talk about, or at least I talk about, my journey through all of this work and me being a mom. And I don't know how many of our listeners are parents, but it would definitely be a missed opportunity to not hear from you about the benefit of this work for not just even your kids, but like the other people in your life. So I would say that about the Enneagram for obvious reasons, but I would love to hear a little bit about that from you.
Yeah. So full disclaimer, I do not have kids of my own, but I've studied my childhood extensively, kind of overturned every stone and studied the patterns of what was painful for me in regards to my parents, and how I work through those things. And so, yeah, that's one of the gifts, is like when you learn to regulate your nervous system and you understand yourself and your stressors much better, you can bring a calm energy to just about anything. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to step out of reaction, and that's like, I would assume with, kind of paternal instincts of something happens to your kids and you want to jump right away. But, we want to create the space to kind of take the broader view and try and figure out what the best solution for everybody involved is. It is really just about broadening your awareness. Tannah, one of the things we've talked about with your upbringing was kind of a lack of patience and how that affected you, right? It created a lot of this anxious energy. And so, we've worked on you being more patient and allowing things to play out a little bit more and creating that space. So, that's kind of the thing, is we're trying to be less reactionary and more in this place of assessing the situation and choosing the path that's going to be the best for all parties involved. And we can only do that if we have that expanded perception that's I'm able to work through my emotions and get to a balanced place so that I can show up in a way that's resourceful and empowered, and I can make the right decisions, no matter what the situation is. And so it's that calm, balanced energy that benefits everybody around you. And that's what we're really after. If you'll notice the people that in your life are safe to talk to, right? It's just always going to be somebody that listens and allows you to speak and it doesn't jump to judgments. So it's kind of this idea of non-judgment is an important key. And so as we start to heal our own wounds, we soften our judgments, because judgments are just these protections from the past of like this situation, I have a fear attached to it or some sort of hurt. And so I'm trying to protect myself. And so I'm going to jump to some sort of action. And those usually are short-term relief, long-term detrimental things. So it's like, we want that broader perspective so I can kind of see the things play out and factor in like development and how this is going to actually affect somebody long term, rather than I'm just looking for immediate relief from the stress that I'm feeling. So it's about that calm, that center. And that's really what kids respond to. So it's like every like party with babies I go to, the babies are like drawn to me and they like want me to hold them. And so I don't have kids, right? It's just like, it's the calm energy. That's all they want. Adults are usually stressed out and have a lot of chaos going on, and they want the calm. That's what they're responding to. And so that's really one of the greatest gifts when you start to heal, is you start to see every situation as not a big deal, that you'll get through it and that it's going to be okay on the other side. It just might be temporary stressors. And so you're really trying to expand your energy to kind of create the safe space around you for people to be more themselves, right? When I drop judgment, people can show me who they are rather than like trying to show me who they think they want me to see. We call it the mask in this work. I'm pretending. It's a performance thing. Who do I need to be liked by this other person, rather than me just being me, and whether this person accepts me or not, like that doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, for sure. You've been super helpful for me in terms of like, even there's a propensity or a pattern where sometimes I would even get the urge to overcorrect. So I'm trying to create a completely different experience for my kids, and it's almost this overcorrection, even with my spouse, because my parents were not together. I didn't have like that model relationship growing up. So I would overcorrect. And you helped me kind of see where some of the watch outs are, and not just that kind of moving ditch to ditch on it. But also talking with you about the energy and the space that we create. You helped me see, even from a energy within the house, because for people who have listened to other episodes, Landon, my husband, is an 8. He's a social 8. So he is my stress line. So when I'm stressed, I show up like with the not so great tendencies of an 8. So my kids could like pick up on that energy. If there's tension, if he's feeling or if he's feeling, angsty, and I'm trying to kind of like cautiously navigate that to not be a burden, my kids are picking up on that. And you were 100% right. I'll never forget it when you first brought it up, because I came home that night and I was like, we're not going to do that. I'm not doing that today. And my kids are so much better behaved.
All the behavior issues, it's response to tension in the house, because they're feeling something and they don't really know what it is. That's overwhelming. And so it needs to come out in different ways. They need to express that energy. And yeah, it's like, if what's also modeled is super important. Yeah. How you express anger, frustration, things like that. So, they're just kind of watching everything, and they're also feeling everything. They haven't really learned to numb out yet, which is a gift of a child, is their innocence. They are just like kind of sponges. And yeah, to speak a little bit on that idea of like, generally it's a common pattern for if you have a painful childhood experience yourself, we have two roads there. Usually it's like, okay, I'm going to do the same things as my parents and not question anything, or I'm going to try and do the exact opposite, right? So we swing completely the opposite direction because we don't want to be our parents, but we still have the wounds of existing in that way. That's where unconsciously we actually do a lot of similar things that our parents did, but we don't think we're doing them because we put it on ourselves to be like, I'm not going to be like them. And so we try to overcorrect, like you're saying. And so the solutions are always kind of in the middle. We don't want two opposite ends of the spectrum. We want to find that calm in the center. And so that's going to be a balanced approach. So it's going to be like, yeah, this might have been too polarized this direction. I'm not going to swing all the way the other direction. Initially, I will. That's natural. Because if that's the model I have of like, okay, I just don't want to be this way, so I'm going to do everything the opposite of what they do. That's like your starting place. And there's no judgment around that. It's just like that's going to present its own set of issues as well. Any polarity we have is going to present certain problems. And that's actually where the tension gets created, is because we have people on opposite ends of spectrum. So there's this big gap in the middle that's like stressful. And so when we resolve situations, it's about bridging the gap. And so that means moving to a more balanced perspective rather than a polarized perspective. That's how you dissipate the tension and create peace in the household, is we start to harmonize the energies rather than stay in the polarity all the time.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And it has this other dotted line to something that you and I have talked about, Holly. I don't know if you've talked about something similar, but it's interesting to bring up in the context of the Enneagram because, Brandon, you and I have talked about where there can be conflict that comes up in tension and trapped energy when you're acting out of alignment with yourself. So if there's something that you believe, like if you and I talk about integrity a lot, integrity seems to like come up all the time. What I would run up against is I would get so triggered by people who I perceive to have a lack of integrity. And you kind of walked me through why that is and the important tie. So, Holly, I don't know if you have talked about something similar where you're acting out of alignment with Brandon, but I see the tie to the Enneagram for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know that we talk about it exactly the same way. That's one of the things about working with Brandon. Like everything's pretty custom to your situation. So I think we've talked about it, maybe not from the place of integrity, but maybe it was. I don't know. I don't know that we defined it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just to, I don't have kids either. And I'm pretty sure our listeners know that. But I did ask Brandon once when we were unpacking some of my childhood garbage that is it possible to like raise kids that won't have the baggage, and can you do things in such a way that you have kids that grow up and they're balanced and they don't feel all the things that I have felt or that you have felt, Tannah? And Brandon, you can riff on this a little bit more, but what he said to me, right, was this idea of like the best gift, and he just spoke to it a little bit just before, right? But the best gift that you could give kids is to be emotionally regulated yourself. And like parents that are good at conflict and resolving it and are emotionally balanced, like that's what will actually have like healthy kids in the long run.
Yeah, you don't want to, shield them from life. It's like you want to teach them skills, and part of it's modeling and embodying things that you would like them to take from you. And that is even like, if you make a mistake, it's owning it and apologizing and, hey, I'm going to do better at this, and then actually get better at it, right? That's like an integrity piece of, I'm going to be a person of my word, where if I say something, I am going to work on it and improve it. And so, yeah, it's that regulation, it's that calmness that makes kids feel safe, that makes anybody feel safe. We want to be there most of the time, but it's also realities of life is there are just stressful periods. So there could be death in the family, there could be job loss, there could be all these like high tension situations that it's just not ignoring those things. It's saying like, hey, this is what's going on, and we're going to work through it together. Kind of they need the co-regulation, which just means like they're responding to your energy. And so as you're working through things to get more balance, like that helps them as well. And, if we want to go super deep into this, it falls into the realm of epigenetics, which is kind of this new field of science where they're seeing how like generational patterns unfold, where so many of these things are just kind of passed down from generation to generation. And so also one of the greatest gifts you can actually do is heal these traumas, these pains, and find your way to the other side of them, because that actually rewires your DNA. That actually like changes you at a cellular level when you do that work. So you're not passing those traumas onto your kids anymore, because you learn to effectively work through them and navigate them, where it's no longer left in this place of extreme pain or disappointment, letdown, betrayal, all the common life experiences we have that bring us a lot of pain. If you're working through those things, you're basically helping clean that up for the family line, so you're not passing it down. So that's another
Right.
gift.
So what I'm going to say right now, just to tie this to the Enneagram, then you can say what you were about to say, because you were going to have a deep thought. But I was going to say he just like totally moved on his line to the like 5 right there. That was just like a very 5 energy moment.
What does that mean?
We'll unpack that later.
And
Yeah.
the genealogy, like this is cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. No, I was going to ask a question, and I've talked to Holly about this before, where like I get stuck in some conflict sometimes with people who refuse to identify this deep work or this like self-awareness work that could help move things forward, whether it be for a collective group or individually. I struggle with that and I get frustrated by it, right? And you and I have talked about, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, that like we're not operating as mature adults all the time. Like sometimes we have people who are trapped in the high school version of themselves or like the middle school version of themselves. And they're doing those copy paste behaviors. I'm curious about, do you tend to see people who get into this work either more frequently or easier if they've had a significant amount of trauma, or is it pretty balanced?
Oftentimes, pain is the catalyst for seeking, right? It's like, yeah, generally, if you've encountered a lot of challenges and you're carrying a lot of pain, you're looking for options to relieve that. And,
Okay.
we have the surface level versions of like, okay, I'm going to, I might get on medication, or, I might go see a therapist or whatever it is. Those are kind of beginner steps to being like, okay, I know there's something I need to work on here. And, I think it's, it is probably more people that have gone through more trauma, if they can dig in and work through it. I think their capacity is so much greater. They have like a lot more to offer if they're able to get to the other side where they're no longer operating from the pain. But, so people that are kind of more in the middle, I think it's like, you just kind of need to find the right motivation. You need to find what they're really looking for, and you need to be able to tie this to that. Right. So it's just like, if they're after some sort of goal achievement or performance thing, it's like, well, if we get to these deeper levels, that's going to help that. And so it's just about finding ways to connect dots for people where it makes sense to them. And that's where you really just have to be adaptable. Two people are the same, and you need to learn to speak people's language. And that's really about being present with them and connecting with them and really finding out who they are and what their drives are and what they're trying to accomplish in life. And that's saying, I don't think this work has to be for everybody. I think it's really cool and I enjoy it. And I love working with my clients, but then there are people that find their way like other ways. It's like, for some people, just like going fishing is like healing for them, right? It's to be, there's different modalities to just like, how do you find your center? How do you de-stress? Like, how do you shift your mind? How do you reframe things that give you a path forward where you're on this journey of continuous growth? But, there are some people that they have no desire. They want to live kind of maybe more of a status quo life. And that's fine too. It's the acceptance of like all the experiences and not projecting things on other people, being like, well, this worked for me, so you need to do this and you need to fix yourself so that I can feel okay. It's more of, you just handle yourself, and then you become more accepting of whoever's around you, because you understand what's behind it. But if they don't have interest in that, you can't really force these things.
Right.
This is like we always talk about. You can only work with the willing.
The willing, unfortunately, it comes from like major loss, so like health consequences, relationships falling over. It's usually painful events is what makes people go deeper. It doesn't like
Mhm.
have to be that way. And I wish it wasn't that way, but often that's where it needs to get to before people are really open up to try something different or try something new. Because the ego can be very strong and we all get stuck in these routines, and everybody's got their version of self-soothing, whether that's staying at that same level their whole life. That's kind of like, well, you're just going to kind of get the same results over and over again. And once again, that's fine. Some people, they just want to live that type of life. It's taking the judgment out of it. And it's like, you just do the best you can to share some insights here and there. And you got to be detached from outcome. Not everybody's going to be receptive, and that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a great point. I think the reason that I asked you is Holly and I think it was 2 episodes ago where we were talking about there's a point where sometimes you notice this moment of you start to get sick of your own shit a little bit, where like the same things to your point are not working and I want a different result. I would say that, gosh, when I even started this work, I was attached to a particular result and then that faded away like very quickly, where I had this like idealistic version of who I am and what my day looks like and how I'm functioning
Mhm.
through all of this work and like a happy ending. And now I know it's like an everyday choice. It's like
Yep.
every single day, I'm not going to do the same thing. I'm going to do this differently. And I think that ties to all of this work. I love it. I'm super passionate about it. It makes total sense that you are our first guest because you are mentioned on literally every podcast. And
Yeah.
I hope everyone can hear the ties to all of this work and how helpful it's been.
Well, it doesn't have to be a struggle. Like, it takes conscious effort to recognize your patterns, but once you get to the core of something and you understand it and you kind of dissolve the pain behind it, you kind of like naturally flow into new things without trying, right? It doesn't take a lot of effort once you pinpoint it and get to the bottom of it.
Cool.
You can just let it go and you can move into something else because you're not trying to protect yourself from that fear anymore. So, that's kind of the beauty of this. I think it's like elegant work because it's very simple in terms of like, if you just listen to your stresses, you discover so much about yourself, but then you can easily grow into anything you want because you're freeing up so much extra energy in the process to channel into things that are productive for you, that like excite you, that give you purpose. You're dropping that need to kind of just play small and hold yourself back out of self-preservation. That's kind of the key here is we're just trying to surrender the ego, and the ego is designed to protect you. And the ego has a lot of stories about why you should live the same life every day. So, that's the level you gotta work on if you want some pretty quick and cool results, is you have to go as deep as you can, because once you switch it there, like things can happen pretty naturally. And that's what's really exciting about it.
Super cool. I can attest to that.
Us too.
I think I accomplished more in the last 2 years than like the previous 10. I don't know, maybe
Right. Right.
from a development perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw an Iron
Yeah.
Man in there too.
No big deal.
No big deal. All right. So we should probably wrap on this, even though we could probably do another hour with Brandon.
Well,
Maybe we'll have him back on later.
I think once I actually look at the assessment, I think we should do it again and actually talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well, no, I think
do.
this is-
I'm so interested in Soul Child with him. Like,
Yeah.
I would love to do a full like debrief on all of that as an
Yeah.
episode. That
I'd be happy to.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to prep him better for the next one for Soul Child. That was
This
like
is
a
how we
5
do
minutes.
them.
We're
Here
like,
we
okay,
go.
we can do this. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. We're
This is-
7ing.
We're doing how we're 7ing everywhere. It's
That's
great.
good.
Great.
7s are the best.
Might not be wrong. All right. So
Okay.
this was so good. Remind everybody where to find us.
Yeah. So find us everywhere you digest your podcast, whether that be Spotify, Apple. We're also on iHeart. So find us there. Find Brandon and Holly's podcast as well.
Those
in
same
all
places.
three- And on social as well. If you want to hit them with the tagline for Brandon, and ours is Enneagram Adventure. One call out I would have is like, just comment, DM. We love to hear from you guys. We're hearing from more of you, and it's been so great. So if you have questions, comments, anything like that, would love to hear more. And please check out Brandon's work on social. He's got a ton of great stuff. Even the reels you post, I'm like, this makes sense. Like, it just makes sense. So 10 out of 10 recommend. And if you get the opportunity to explore the work with him, honestly, the best investment you can make in yourself. So
Yeah, 100% agree. So we'll make sure all of Brandon's links are in our show notes or on our YouTube description if you're there. So we'll put all of those there plus our own. Brandon, before we go, do you just want to like give your 30-second pitch on your discovery call and like all of that? Because we would welcome like all of our listeners to like hit you up and learn more,
Totally.
work with you. Yeah.
Sure. So I offer a free discovery session that's 30 minutes where I just get to know you a little bit better and what you've got going on and what you're trying to accomplish. And I share with you about my philosophy and how I can help you get there. So you can visit my website, brandonthielk.com. That's THIELK. And you can just book it right there on the site. And I also have a newsletter that I send out weekly and give you all the updates on what I've got going on. And the Permission to Evolve podcast is both me and Holly. So you can check that out as well. My Instagram handle is at Brandon Thielk. So always posting there multiple times a day. Holly or Tannah says it's great. So it's great, right?
She's the utmost authority.
But
Obviously.
yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. If you want to know more about the work, let's talk.
All right. So good.
It was so good to see you guys. This was like literally the highlight of my week, Brandon. Like, seeing your day, talking with you. This is great. We will chat soon. And I hope you guys have a great time.
Yeah, we will. I'll be back in Wisconsin for the next one. So maybe a little less sun-kissed.
I miss you.
All right. I'll talk to you later,
Okay.
Tannah.
Bye.